Hello guys and welcome back. So for today's videos we're going to talk about the Italian civilization that you selected in last week's poll, and the winner is...
Ooh, that's kind of small. Yikes.
the Senoses. I was a bit disappointed by the numbers, but it could have been worse. And if you want to choose which civilization you want me to cover next, go to this week's poll. I will put a link here and in the description. That being said, let's get started. So, the Senoses are among the most famous Celtic tribes in history, perhaps together with the Britons, the Galatians, and the Arverni. Their fame is attributed to the Great Sack of Rome of 390 BC and the Battle of Allia, the same year. But before we go there, let's talk about their origins. The Senoses lived in northern France, just west from Paris, in this region now called the Seine-et-Marne. Their capital was Aegidincum, today's Sens. The Celts lived a rural life, mostly based on hunting, farming and crafting. But around 400 BC, many Senoses joined a huge horde of Celtic tribes crossing the Alps from France. It later reached the Padana Plains in northern Italy. This migration was organized by the semi-mythological leader Bellovessus. Thousands of people left their homeland, probably due to overpopulation, wars or famine, and went to Italy in search for better land. While most tribes settled in today's Piedmont, Lombardy, and some parts of Veneto to some extent, the Senoses went a bit more southeast to be specific, home of the Picentes and the Umbrians. If you want to know more about them, check the Samnites video if you haven't already. The new territory of the Senoses stretched from the Montone River to the Esino River. On the other side of the Montone was the territory of the Boii, the Celts with the funny name that I covered in a past video. While south we had what was left of the southern Picentians settlements. West there were the rich lands of the Etruscans. Their lifestyle didn't change very much, other than the fact that now they give more importance to raiding. Often men went by working as mercenaries or joining raiding parties. In 391, Senoses' leader Brennus founded the city of Sena Gallica, which today is known as Senegalia. The settlement would later on become the capital of the domain just a few years later. Brennus was probably the leader of the Italian branch of the Senoses at the time, as he was also the one in charge of the great Senoses army that sacked Rome. Which brings us to the question, why did the Senoses attack Rome if they could just attack Etruria instead? Well, originally they did exactly that. In 390, Brennus took 30,000 men to the Etruscan city of Clusium and laid siege to it. The inhabitants of the city asked Rome for help, and the Senate sent 3 ambassadors to them to be mediators between the Etruscans and the Senoses. Rome, at this time, had become a respectable power in the region. It was the most powerful member of the Latin League, which had been at war with the Etruscans before, so it would have been fair to ask them to mediate the negotiations. However, one of the ambassadors killed one of the Celtic diplomats, and when the Senoses asked the ambassadors to be punished by the Senate, the people elected them to the government, which made them untouchable. This infuriated Brennus, who decided to go and attack Rome instead. After the Battle of Allia, where the 30,000 Senosians slaughtered an untrained and numerically inferior Roman force, they sacked the city, as well as the surrounding countryside. They never reached the part of the city with all the temples and most of the gold and silver, but they still dealt a lot of damage to the city's morale and just damage in general. The famous general Camillus defeated the Celtic forces and killed Brennus, but the Senoses stayed or periodically came to pillage the Latin countryside for the next 100 years, when they were defeated and pushed back to Marche. The Senoses territory was absorbed into Roman control in 272 BC, and what remained of Celtic culture just washed away after some other decades. The last mention of the Senoses was during the campaign of Julius Caesar in Gaul in the 60s BC, after they probably disappeared for good. That was all that was left of the Senoses tribe, and they just disappeared. Unlike the other civilizations that we have covered, the Senoses, as well as many other Celtic tribes who lived in Italy back then, left the least amount of genetic evidence behind. Due to their culture and infamy, Celts never really integrated, and due to their occupation as mercenaries and rural lifestyle, the Celtic population kept on decreasing. And for the ones who did mix, there is little evidence of their origins in today's DNA. However, we can agree that the Celts were slightly taller than the Italians and had ginger hair or light brown hair, and most likely had blue eyes. They also had a tendency of not shaving very much, hence the very long mustache and long hair were pretty much close to the truth. And if you have watched or at least seen a picture of Asterix and Obelix, they didn't look very different. Well, that's all I have. Be sure to like and subscribe, and to let me know what you want me to talk about in the next video. Expect a very vague and scattered upload schedule in the future because of university and everything. See you next time with a brand new video.